The first thing you noticed? It wasn't the abandoned warehouse, it was the silence. My men had searched for Emily Carter for 3 endless days, after she vanished without a trace. In 7 years, my assistant had never missed a single meeting. Never ignored a phone call and never disappeared. When one of my captains traced the last signal from her phone to an abandoned factory on the outskirts of the city, he knew something was terribly wrong. He kicked the rusty metal door open with enough force to shake the walls. Dust filled the air as my bodyguards rushed in behind me. Weapons drawn, then he saw her. Emily was hanging from the ceiling, her wrists chained above her head. Bruises darkened her face dried. Blood stained her white blouse, and her breathing was so weak he could barely hear it. The woman who had protected my empire, with nothing but her intelligence, looked completely broken. My heart pounded harder than it ever had during a gunfight. He ran toward her and cut the chains with my knife. She collapsed into my arms, trembling from exhaustion. Her eyes slowly opened, boss. She whispered, "I'm here." He said, "You're safe now." She struggled to speak every word, causing her pain. "Don't marry Sophia," my body froze. Emily grabbed my sleeve with what little strength she had left. "She hired them after the wedding. They were going to kill you." The world around me seemed to disappear. 3 days later, I was supposed to marry Sophia Moretti, the beautiful daughter of one of the most powerful mafia families in the country. The marriage was supposed to unite our organizations and end years of conflict. Instead, I had just learned it was all a lie. My name is Marco DeLuca, and for 15 years, people had called me the most feared mafia boss in the city. Men twice my age lowered their eyes when he entered the room. Politicians accepted my phone calls before answering their own. Families, but none of my power would have survived without Emily. She wasn't glamorous, she wasn't famous. She wasn't the kind of woman magazines put on their covers. She was plus size, wore simple clothes, and rarely spoke unless necessary. People overlooked her. That was their biggest mistake. Emily remembered every meeting, every bank transfer, every business contract, and every face that walked through my office. She noticed lies before anyone else did. More than once, she quietly stopped deals that would have cost me millions of dollars. She never wanted credit. She simply smiled and returned to work. Months earlier, when he announced my engagement to Sophia, everyone celebrated everyone except Emily. Several times she tried to warn me, "Boss," she said one evening while organizing financial files, "you think someone inside the Moretti family is eating something." He barely looked up. The security team already investigated them. "They missed something, they won't." Emily didn't argue. She simply nodded and continued working. Now he understood why after taking Emily to my private hospital. The doctors treated her injuries while he waited outside her room. Hours later, she asked to see me alone. Without speaking, she reached beneath the hospital blanket and handed me a tiny flash drive. "Eat it before they kidnapped me." She whispered it. "They never found it." Back at my office, my computer specialist opened it. The files within seconds. Silence filled the room. There were secret bank transfers from Sophia to one of my biggest rivals. Private messages discussing my assassination after the wedding assigned agreement promising that once I was dead, both families would divide my empire between them. The marriage had never been about peace. It had been planned as my funeral. Emily had discovered the truth while reviewing financial records. Before she could bring the evidence to me, Sophia's men kidnapped her and tortured her, demanding to know where she had hidden the files. She never told them, not once. She chose to suffer rather than let me die. The next morning, he called every important member of both mafia families to the ballroom where our wedding rehearsal was scheduled. Sophia entered wearing an expensive white dress, smiling confidently as cameras flashed around her. She walked toward me and kissed my cheek. "Only 2 more days," she said happily. "Is my LED back now?" She looked confused. There won't be a wedding. Before anyone could react, giant screens behind us lit up one by one. The files Emily had risked her life to protect appeared before every guest. The ballroom fell completely silent. Sophia's smile vanished. "This is fake," she shouted. Then he held up the original flash drive. My assistant almost died protecting the truth. No one defended Sophia. Even her own father looked at her in disbelief. Without another word, he removed my engagement ring and placed it on the table. "The wedding is cancelled." That single sentence destroyed an alliance worth billions. Over the next 3 days, my rivals launched attacks across the city. Believing I was vulnerable, they were wrong. Every captain in my organization fought harder after learning what Emily had sacrificed. Within a week, the conspiracy had collapsed. Those responsible for Emily's kidnapping were arrested by corrupt officials they had once bribed, while others disappeared from the criminal world forever. Months later, Emily returned to work. She still wore simple clothes. She still arrived early. She still smelled chilly winter. Someone thanked her one evening. He asked her to join me on the rooftop overlooking the city. He almost lost everything. He told her. She shook her head. "No, boss." "You almost lost yourself for a long moment." Neither of us spoke then. He finally understood what had been in front of me all those years. The woman who truly loved me had never asked for my money, my power, or my name. She had only wanted me to live. He gently took her hand. "Emily,
would you give me a second chance?"
Tears filled her eyes as she smiled. "Only if this time you promise to listen. When he warned you he loved, for the first time in years, he promised sometimes. True love doesn't arrive wearing diamonds or expensive dresses. Sometimes it walks quietly beside you every day asking for nothing. Until one act of courage reveals that it has been there all along.